You want to start in UX design but don't know where? I have you covered. I welcome you in this free Figma course for complete beginners. My name is Ines, I'm a principal product designer at Zalando and a hiring manager. And I have more than 15 years of experience in UX design, so I know Figma in and out and I work with it every day. And I know that without a substantial knowledge of the tooling we use in UX design, it's really hard to learn and practice the profession. And in the first lesson of this course, we're going to get familiar with the new Figma interface. So you are going to get rid of your fear on starting in a new tool and not knowing what to expect from it. Also, Figma has updated the interface quite recently, so this tutorial might be also helpful for seasoned UX designers who are still struggling with the update. So let's go. So let's review what you will see if you have just started a fresh new Figma account the same way that I did for this tutorial. You will see this particular screen and you already will see some files associated with this screen, and those are not the files I have created before. Those are new files that are meant to be guiding you, and the Figma team has put a lot of effort into putting this all together. You can have a look around those files and see if they are helpful. But anyways, I will be explaining to you everything that you will need in order to operate in Figma. So in this particular screen, there are a few things that are very important. The first is the switcher on the left-hand side top corner. And this is where you can switch between other profiles that you have. You can log out, you can change the theme if you are into it, and you can access your settings. If you ever lost in your profiles, this is where you should go. Other thing that you might be using in the beginning, especially if you are just learning UX design, is this notification tool, because this is where you can see if others have invited you to some files and you can accept the invitation. Sometimes it happens in a bootcamp, for example, when a mentor will be sharing the file with you, so this is where you will find it. Then of course you can search by everything in Figma, which works just fine. Every file name you can place in here. After that, what is also important to pay attention, and which is a new thing in Figma, is that they has just introduced the spaces here. So, or the teams, so to say. You can create a new space, a new team, and that will roughly mean a new group for your files. I was honestly very confused by this update in the beginning, and I will explain you why. Because you need to know now that drafts and the trash, they belong to each group or to each team. So if you have ever lost a file that you remember it should be in your draft somewhere, then you have to check every team and every drafts folder in the team, which I don't find really convenient, but this is the new way to go in Figma. The next important thing to know about the Figma is there is a community, and you can access the community by clicking here down below on the left-hand side corner. I would say it's not very explicit, and I tend to lose this functionality all the time, because in the previous version it was always somewhere on the top, but it's fine. To be honest, you are not reaching out to the Figma community that often, but it's really nice to check what's in there, to get there from time to time, and to get use of the various design resources that they have there for free. So check it out 100% in your spare time, but because it's very intuitive, we're not going to stay on this for long. Now let's get back to your files. As of today, Figma offers 3 types of files that you can create inside of it. The first is the regular Figma file that we are going to spend the most time in this tutorial and in this course overall. The second type is the FigJam board file, and you can think of the FigJam file as an alternative to Miro or Mural, the place where you can drop post-its, connect it with arrows, and overall do brainstorming, facilitate workshops, and so on. We are not going to review this particular file type in this tutorial. I will 100% make another one because I love FigJam, I use it every day, but it's also very intuitive and you will learn it in no time. Third file type that Figma allows you to create is the slide deck. I have the beta sign on it, so I don't know if that's available for everyone now, but I definitely used it already multiple times and I must say it's very good. It's the alternative to Keynote, to Google presentations, so it's very legit. They have very nice templates there, and it's also very, very intuitive. And same with the FigJam board, we're not going to spend on this file type time right now. Because the major work for you in UX design will happen in the design file, of course. This is where you will create your stunning user interfaces and will hand over those files to developers. The last note here is that all of the files, although they are called a file, they will not be stored on your computer. They are all cloud-based, so once you create a file, it will be saved in Figma and you can access it in the Figma interface. You can download it there if you wish, but overall it's a cloud-based application, which is really nice. Let's dive deeper into the design file, our main beast. Immediately you will see that you have 3 panels there: the left hand side panel, the right hand side, and the bottom one. Let's review them one by one. The left one is actually the one that you work with the least, but it's very important when you want to navigate your file or you want to assign the name for it. So here is how you can rename your file. Let's have it named tutorial. Also here you can see that you have 2 tabs, the file one and the assets one. The file tab allows you to access the pages and to create more of them. Why and when you will need the pages? You will need them to organize your files. Say if you have multiple versions inside of your file, each version can live on the separate page. Or for a bigger file, each screen of your application might be having a separate page. That's up to you how you organize that. Then there are layers, and we're going to talk about them a bit later on once we will create some layers. What else do I find important about this panel is this icon on the top left corner, because in this icon you can access the most important settings for your file. Let's also review them together. You can of course create a new design file, a new FigJam file right from here as well as from the top. You can save the local copy. That means that you will download your file to your laptop. Also, you can see the version history or you can save to the version history. I really don't know why you need a separate action for saving to version history, because from my experience it is saved automatically there. But maybe once you did a very important update and you don't want it to be lost, you can use that. But I've never used this feature, to be honest. But accessing version history, it is something very important. I also don't use that a lot, but I use it in a very critical moments. And every time I am grateful they have this feature. In the version history, you can see who has made changes on the file, and you can get back to the previous version if something has been broken in the new one. You can also export the whole file or some frames to PDF, but honestly we will be more using the other exporting function I'm going to cover later on. What else? Then you can see that there is all too expected editing options. You can find something in the file, you can pick color, you can select everything in your file, and so on. So those are very contextual and they are very logical, and I think you will have no problems in understanding what's in there. Then you can also change the view in the file, and I personally find it's really helpful because from time to time I am switching on the pixel grid to see if my designs are pixel perfect. I can also switch on and switch off the layout grid and the rulers. Rulers, for example, will look something like that, but it's not always necessary to see them, so you can also easily switch them off. Because I don't really use that often, I don't also remember the shortcuts for it, except maybe for the shortcut for the grids, but it's really handy that they have them. Other things that you can find under this tab, honestly, are pretty rare. And I think if you will be having such a narrow use case for them, you will definitely know where to look at. This is everything concerning the view of the file. The next menu items as object, text, arrange, and vector, they are honestly also not very much in use because you can access these features from elsewhere. So let's not spend the time on it. The next menu group has plugins and widgets there, which is very much in use, but you can also access this feature from another place, which I myself prefer. So I will explain to you what plugins and widgets are once we reach out this piece of the interface. And the other thing that is probably unique for this particular menu is the preference section, because you cannot access it from elsewhere. In the preference section, there is also not many things that you will use every day, but it's nice to know that it is there. So in case that you will need to change something, to switch something on and off, this is the place you need to check if you can access it from there. From my side, the only thing that I would probably use is to switch the theme from here, but it's also not very often that I do that because this is controlled by my system and I switch the interface to the black one automatically. To finish up on this, I also wanted to touch on this libraries section. It is very important that you know that it is there, but you can also access it from a different page, which I'm going to talk about now. But in this page where you can access it, it is not called libraries, it is actually hidden behind this icon. So it's absolutely the same feature and you can access it from two places, and it's often the case with the Figma, to be honest. And we're going to talk about that as well. Actually, let's do it right now because we are now in the tab called Assets. And assets basically means libraries. I don't know why they have come up with a different name for it. Maybe they had a reason. But libraries are the design elements we are creating the files with. For example, if you want to create a page that will allow users to register in your application, you will probably need things like a button where they can click and register. You might need a field where they can input their name and email and so on. And so that you don't create those buttons and fields all the time on each and every screen that you are working with, you can create them in a separate file. And then once you need a button for your screens, you can just grab it from there. And the great thing that is will be linked to your original file, to your library. And that means that if you want to create changes in your button, say you want to change a color, then if you change it in your original file, it will change all over your slides, which is a phenomenally cool feature of Figma. And previously we had to live without it using other tools, but now it has become our new standard of work and I don't really know how can we live without it. I'm not going to cover the details of creating libraries right now because this is a big piece of UX design, but in the next tutorials in this course we're definitely gonna cover how to create components and then combine them in a library. Oh, I actually noticed that I made a typo here. I'm sorry, I will correct it that easily. Now let's say we have connected few libraries like there and we are going to move on. Then there is the right hand side panel, and with this panel we are going to work all the time, so pay close attention. First, in this panel there is this bright button on the right hand side corner called Share. And this button is often overlooked by junior UX designers and for those who are just starting to learn Figma. And this button is very important because from time to time your mentors in UX design will be asking to share your files with them, and this is exactly what you will need to use. When you are sharing your file, make sure that people have the access. This is done in the same manner as in every tool that will allow you to share files, say in Google Docs. So you need to add a person and then you can arrange the viewing access for them. So this is pretty easy. I'm sure you're going to figure this out. The one thing that you might need to note is that the copy link is actually not so visible and is placed on the right hand side corner. So this is the only thing that you need to be mindful here. Let's move on. Now you will immediately see that there are two tabs as well, the design tab and the prototype tab. The design tab will help you to set everything in your file. You can change the background like that just easily, or you can even add the opacity here, meaning the transparency of the background. I don't know why you would need this, but anyways, right now while our file is empty, we don't see a lot here, so we only see the local variables and local styles. I will make another video about the variables and styles and how you can differentiate between them and which one you're going to use when, but right now we're not going to touch on this and we're not going to go in depth. But just know, so if you have nothing selected in your file, then you can rule the local variables and local styles. Then you can also see here a very important thing called export. I mentioned exporting when we were talking about the left-hand side panel, but this exporting feature is more oftenly used. And now let's review the second tab that we have here, the prototype one. And again, once right now there is nothing created in the file, we can only set preferences for the file in general. And prototypes are the things that we are going to use to demonstrate how our screens are moving between each other, what is the relationship between them, what happens when a person clicks on this button, and so on. And you can be showing this through different devices. And Figma will actually do a great work by setting your designs right inside of the device, which usually looks really, really good and helps you to present the file to your stakeholders. We are not going to touch again here the details about creating prototypes because it's a big topic. There's going to be another tutorial about that, but just so you know right now, this is where you will be navigating your prototype creation. By the way, if you like this video and you want to receive more videos like that, give me thumbs up and hit the subscribe button down below. That's important for me and for YouTube algorithms. And we are moving on. And this is basically it for the right-hand side tab. Let's move on to the bottom one. And this panel is actually the easiest one because it's also the smallest one, and it consists of everything that you can create in your file. The first icon here will allow you to change the mode of the file, but for you to see it, let's first create something in this file. And this icon here called frame, it looks like a cropped icon from some other graphic design tools, but it's actually another thing. When you will create a frame, it will suggest you to choose which frame you want to create it for. Is it for Android, iPhone, desktop, or something else? Let's assume we're going to create something for iPhone, and this is the ready-made frame fitting the size of the latest iPhone. Now, as I said, this first icon here, it is called Move Tools. It will allow you to choose the modus that you can use while navigating the file. To be honest, I'm using right now this magic touchpad from Apple, so I'm not really using this tool anymore because the touchpad allows me to do everything without changing the modus. But if you are working with a classical mouse, this might be something that you want to have a look on, because the hand tool will allow you for example, to move the artboards like that. And the second tool, scale, will allow you to scale them, which I really don't know why you would use that, because the move tool will allow you to scale everything the same way as the scale tool. But anyway, they have it there, and I think this is done for people who are using mouse. Let's get back to our frame and actually discuss what it is, the frame. The frame is the view that fits some devices. And if you will create something that will get outside of the frame, it will not be visible on your devices. You can actually make it visible here by clicking here, click content. But when somebody will be building your designs, they will not be able to showcase this piece of the rectangle, because our devices we're creating the designs for, they are limited by size. So what can you create there besides of a frame? You can also create a selection. Selection is actually a new feature in Figma, and the way I understand the selection is just the way to create a grouping for your frames. So previously I used to create a frame that fits other frames, but it is not how it is supposed to work, because the frames are really the views of actual devices, and the section is helping you just visually to separate them from one another. I don't use it that often, but it's actually quite handy. Now, what else can you create here? I will just briefly mention that you will also have the tool called Slice here. And what Slice does, it can help you to export just the piece of your frame without exporting the whole frame. I would not say that this is very convenient, and I don't really use that actually. I think this might be helpful for developers who are working with your files, because they might need to export occasionally small pieces of designs to work with them, but I don't really use this feature, and I recommend you not to be stressing about it. The next tool in the bottom panel is actually the pen and pencil tool. The pen I use quite often. Pencil is more handy when you just want to circle something out, maybe when you are presenting presenting something and you want to point out to a piece of your designs that you want to discuss. But overall, for actual pure UI design creation, we don't use that often. But pen is actually handy because you can create any shape for the pen, you can change it, you can work with it separately, you can combine them all together, and you have more control over that. And the last tool you're going to use to create your designs day by day is the text tool. When you add a text and let's see if I will not make a typo this time. You are just working with a very predictable tool. I don't think you will have any problems working with that. So this way you can probably add the title, for example, to your designs. Then probably you have noticed already that every time I create something new on the board, the right-hand side panel is actually changing, and it changes to show you the logical settings and preferences for each and every piece of design that you are creating. For example, for the text that we have just added, we have here the piece called typography, where I can change the font, I can change the side. You have already seen me doing that. Oops, not such a pleasant font, but anyway, so you can choose any font from here. Just check if you have the license for it. Figma has a big library of free fonts, but if you want to use something else, you need to buy it. And you can also change the color for this piece. You can add the stroke. Let's make it even more ugly. Like, I don't know how more ugly can it be. You can also add effects, meaning mostly that you can add drop shadows, you can blur the layer. Maybe it's actually good if we can blur that because it's really ugly, and things like that. So study this right-hand side panel and you will find that you can do everything. Any idea that you might have about the designs that you have created, you can realize them by just a handful of settings. Now, let's delete this and see what else is there. We have actually finished the discussion about the panels here. One maybe good thing that I did not mention, that the panels can be minimized. So if you really have something to work on in focus, you can use this type of the interface, which looks really lightweight and will allow you to have more space in front of you. But this will be really handy to work with this setup if you know the shortcuts. And this is the tip for you. This question mark in the right hand side bottom corner will actually provide you the access to all keyboard shortcuts. So if you ever lost or if you have forgotten a shortcut, this is where you can see them all, and you can also learn them from there. This is how I learned the shortcuts from Figma. I really like working with shortcuts because it makes my work really fast, and I can also use a more clean version of the interface in front of me, which I really like. Okay, that was it for today. We had an overview of a new Figma interface. Of course, it's just the beginning. You have only received the bird's eye view on the Figma functions, and now it's time to dive deeper. If you liked this video and you want to continue studying Figma, make sure you're subscribed to my channel and you switched on the notifications by clicking on the bell, because this way you will get a notification when the next tutorial in this free Figma course will be out. Don't miss out on this, and I see you in the next video.